Bible in a Year Chronological Project, Week 32, Day 7, The Message. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, gave Nebuzaradan, captain of the king's bodyguards, special orders regarding Jeremiah. Look out for him. Make sure nothing bad happens to him. Give him anything he wants. So Nebuzaradan, chief of the king's bodyguard, along with Nebuchadnezzar, the Rabsaris, Nergal-Sharezer, the Rabmag, and all of the chief officers of the king of Babylon, sent for Jeremiah, taking him from the courtyard of the royal guards and putting him under the care of Jedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, to be taken home, and so he was able to live with the people. Earlier, while Jeremiah was still in custody in the courtyard of the royal guards, God's message came to him. Go and speak with Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian. Tell him, God of the angel armies, the God of Israel, says, listen carefully. I will do exactly what I said I would do to this city. Bad news, not good news. When it happens, you will be there to see it, but I'll deliver you on that doomsday. You won't be handed over to those men whom you have good reason to fear. Yes, I'll most certainly save you. You won't be killed. You'll walk out of there safe and sound because you trusted me. God's decree. Go and live wherever you wish. God's message to Jeremiah after Nebuzaradan, captain of the bodyguard, set him free at Ramah. When Nebuzaradan came upon him, he was in chains, along with all the other captives from Jerusalem and Judah who were being herded off to exile in Babylon. The captain of the bodyguard singled out Jeremiah and said to him, Your God pronounced doom on this place. God came and did what he had warned he'd do because you all sinned against God and wouldn't do what he told you. So now you're all suffering the consequences. But today, Jeremiah, I'm setting you free, taking the chains off your hands. If you'd like to come to Babylon with me, come along. I'll take good care of you. But if you don't want to come to Babylon with me, that's just fine too. Look, the whole land stretches out before you. Do what you like. Go and live wherever you wish. If you want to stay home, go back to Jedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan. The king of Babylon made him governor of the cities of Judah. Stay with him and your people, or go wherever you'd like. It's up to you. The captain of the bodyguard gave him food for the journey and a parting gift and sent him off. Jeremiah went to Jedaliah, son of Ahikam, at Mizpah and made his home with him and the people who were left behind in the land. In the 90th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, on the 7th day of the 5th month, Nebuzaradan, the king of Babylon's chief deputy, arrived in Jerusalem. He burned the temple of God to the ground, went to the royal palace, and then finished off the city. He burned the whole place down. He put the Babylonian troops he had with him to work knocking down the city walls. Finally, he rounded up everyone left in the city, including those who had earlier deserted to the king of Babylon, and took them off into exile. He left a few poor dirt farmers behind to tend the vineyards and what was left of the fields. The Babylonians broke up the bronze pillars, the bronze washstands, and the huge bronze basin, the sea, that were in the temple of God, and hauled the bronze off to Babylon. They also took the various bronze-crafted liturgical accessories used in the services of the temple worship, as well as the gold and silver censers and sprinkling bowls. The king's deputy didn't miss a thing. He took every scrap of precious metal he could find. The amount of bronze they got from the two pillars, the sea, and all the washstands that Solomon had made for the temple of God was enormous. They couldn't weigh it all. Each pillar stood 27 feet high, plus another 4.5 for an entire ornate capital of bronze filigree and decorative fruit. The king's deputy took a number of special prisoners: Seraiah, the chief priest; Zephaniah, the associate priest; 3 wardens, the chief remaining army officer; 5 of the king's counselors, the accountant, the chief recruiting officer for the army, and 60 men of standing from among the people. Nebuzaradan, the king's deputy, marched them all off to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And there at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, the king of Babylon killed the lot of them in cold blood. Judah went into exile, orphaned from her land. In the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, on the 7th day of the 5th month, Nebuzaradan, the king of the Babylon's chief deputy, arrived in Jerusalem. He burned the temple of God to the ground, went on to the royal palace, and then finished off the city. He burned the whole place down. He put the Babylonian troops he had with him to work knocking down the city walls. Finally, he rounded up everyone left in the city, including those who had earlier deserted to the king of Babylon, and then took them off into exile. He left a few poor dirt farmers behind to tend the vineyards and what was left of the fields. The Babylonians broke up the bronze pillars, the bronze washstands, and the huge bronze basin, the sea, that were in the temple of God, and hauled the bronze off to Babylon. They also took the various bronze-crafted liturgical accessories, as well as the gold and the silver censers and sprinkler bowls used in the services of the temple worship. The king's deputy didn't miss a thing. He took every scrap of precious metal he could find. The amount of bronze he got from the 2 pillars, the sea, the 12 bronze bowls that supported the sea, and the 10 washstands that Solomon had made for the temple of God was enormous. They couldn't weigh it all. Each pillar stood 27 feet high with a circumference of 18 feet. The pillars were hollow, the bronze a little less than an inch thick. Each pillar was topped with an ornate capital of bronze pomegranates and filigree, which added another 7.5 feet to its height. There were 96 pomegranates evenly spaced. In all, 100 pomegranates worked into the filigree. The king's deputy took a number of special prisoners: Seraiah, the chief priest; Zephaniah, the associate priest; 3 wardens; the chief remaining army officer, even of the king's counselors who had to be in the city; the chief recruiting officer for the army, and 60 men of standing from among the people who were still there. Nebuzaradan, the king's deputy, marched them all off to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And there at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, the king of Babylon killed the lot of them in cold blood. Judah went into exile, orphaned from her land. God, the God of their ancestors, repeatedly sent warning messages to them. Out of compassion for both his people and his temple, he wanted to give them every chance possible, but they wouldn't listen. They poked fun at God's messengers, despised the message itself, and in general treated the prophets like idiots. God became more and more angry until there was no turning back. God called in Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who came and killed indiscriminately, and right in the temple itself. It was a ruthless massacre. Young men and virgins, the elderly and weak, they were all same to him. And then he plundered the temple of everything valuable, cleaned it out completely. He emptied the treasures of the temple of God, the treasures of the king and his officials, and hauled it all. people and possessions off to Babylon. He burned the temple of God to the ground, knocked down the wall of Jerusalem, and set fire to all the buildings. Everything valuable was burned, and any survivor was taken prisoner into exile in Babylon and was made a slave to Nebuchadnezzar and his family. The exile and slavery lasted until the kingdom of Persia took over. This is exactly the message of God that Jeremiah had preached. The desolate land put to an extended Sabbath rest, a 70-year Sabbath rest making up for all the unkept Sabbaths. Oh, 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 how empty the city, once teeming with people, a widow. This city, once in the front rank of nations, once queen of the ball, she's now a drudge in the kitchen. She cries herself to sleep each night, tears soaking her pillow. No one's left among her lovers to sit and hold her hand. Her friends have all dumped her. After years of pain and hard labor, Judah has gone into exile. She camps out among the nations, never feels at home. Hunted by all, she's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Zion's rods weep, empty of pilgrims, headed to the feasts. All her city gates were deserted, her priests in despair. Her virgins are sad, how bitter her fate. Her enemies have become her masters. Her foes are living it up because God laid her low, punishing her repeated rebellions. Her children, prisoners of the enemy, trudge into exile. All beauty has drained from daughter Zion's face. Her princes are like deer famished for food, chased to exhaustion by hunters. Jerusalem remembers the day she lost everything, when her people fell into enemy hands and not a soul there to help. Enemies looked on and laughed at her helpless silence. Jerusalem, who outsinned the whole world, is an outcast. All who admired her despise her now that they see beneath the surface. Miserable, she groans and turns away in shame. She played fast and loose with life. She never considered tomorrow, and now she's crashed royally with no one to hold her hand. Look at my pain, O God, and how the enemy cruelly struts. The enemy reached out to take all her favorite things. She watched as pagans barged into her sanctuary. Those very people from whom you posted orders, keep out, this assembly off limits. All the people groaned, so desperate for food, so desperate to stay alive, that they bartered their favorite thing for a bit of breakfast. Oh God, look at me, worthless, cheap, abject. And you, passerby, look at me. Have you ever seen anything like this? Ever seen pain like my pain? See what he told me? What God did to me in his rage? He struck me with lightning, skewered me from my head to foot. Then he set traps all around so I could hardly move. He left me with nothing, left me sick and sick of living. He wove my sins into a rope and harnessed me to captivity's yoke. I goaded by cruel taskmasters. The master piled up my best soldiers in a heap, then called in thugs to break their fine young necks. The master crushed the life out of fair virgin Judah. For all this I weep buckets of tears, and not a soul within miles around cares for my soul. My children are wasted, my enemy got his way. Zion reached out for help, but no one helped. God ordered Jacob's enemies to surround him, and now no one wants anything to do with Jerusalem. God has right on his side. I'm the one who did wrong. Listen, everybody. Look at what I'm going through. My fair young woman, my fine young men, all herded into exile. I called to my friends. They betrayed me. My priests and my leaders only looked after themselves, trying but failing to save their own skins. Oh God, look at the trouble I am in. My stomach in knots, my heart wrecked by a life of rebellion, massacres in the streets, starvation in the houses. Oh, listen to my groans. No one listens, no one cares. When my enemies heard of the trouble you gave me, they cheered. Bring on judgment day. Let them get what I got. Take a good look at their evil ways and give it to them. Give them what you gave me for my sins. Groaning in pain, body and soul, I've had all I can take.